All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Give me a touchdown on the top prop bets in the end. So right now, as I'm recording this video, we are getting some decent edges on some sportsbook bets. I just want to call these out to you guys if you are someone that bets more on traditional sportsbooks or maybe on Fliff. So right now on Fliff, we got Jalen Hurts for under 1.5 passing touchdowns. It's not a big edge. It's only like 0.2. Okay, but this is something that should never be happening when we're comparing average sportsbook lines with the juice taken out, so the true likelihood of a bet to hit versus a prop line from a sports book with the juice still associated with it. So we should never really ever be gaining an edge. And we are with that prop bet. We are with Bryce Young to score a touchdown on Fanduel, and we are with Donnie Mitchell to get 2.5 receptions, which will contradict a bet I'll say earlier or a little bit later on in this video. But that's not a bad bet there for you guys. And then we also have CJ Stroud there for his under rush yards. I don't feel like we need to really target that one, but we have 4 decent bets there, and I did want to call those out to anyone that bets more on traditional sports books. Then I do want to show you guys the board as it currently sits right now for the best NFL prop bets that we have. These are all bets that I've already ran out, but I'm just going to call it some of my favorite bets as it currently sits. So I don't mind the idea of stacking like Ladd McConkey and Justin Herbert for under their fantasy scores. That's more a bet that I actually like on Underdog when we see the lines there. Those are okay, but the one that I like the most is actually going to be Dalton Kincaid to get his over fantasy score. We look at the line at 10.5. To me, that seems to be just a little bit too low. I'm going to go back into the traditional sportsbook tab to show you guys kind of why. So for Dalton Kincaid, we can see that his average reception line is set at 4.5. Okay, so 4.5 points, fantasy points right there, just in that. If we look at his receiving yards, that's going to be around 48 on average. And so right there, if he just gets those odds, he's already at about 9.3 for his fantasy score. So it's not really factoring in any chance of him scoring a touchdown. And even if he does get the over that's currently being favored, then we're really right there at that line. And now his percent likely to score a touchdown is only about 35% there. But still, you guys get the point that that fantasy scoreline that we're getting is really not accounting for that fantasy score. And if you look at it, Keon Coleman being out, I think that could be pretty huge for Dalton Kincaid. He also gets a pretty darn good matchup this week as well. Getting a matchup with the Colts where, again, kind of referring back to the 9-to-5 cheat sheet here, I'm going to click on his tab here and scroll down so we can see average here, guys. The defense gives up an average of 14 fantasy points to opposing tight ends. So I like that there. Average of 5.71 receptions to opposing tight ends and 58 receiving yards. And so just across the board, he should be able to get this over. And so that is a bet that I personally like. And then also, obviously, if he gets a touchdown, that just means it's even more likely to hit. Now, that's the biggest difference between a bet hitting or not hitting when it comes to props betting. That's why I wanted to call that out. PrizePicks fantasy score props betting, that is. So another bet that we have is looking at Brian Thomas Jr. to under 4.5 receptions. Now, this isn't one that I personally love going out of my way to target, but I do like the fact that it's just like a pure EV bet. You know, it's the average sportsbook line just straight up telling us to bet under 4.5 receptions, not a collective of stats like most of the fantasy score prop bets. And we know, again, fantasy score prop bets are really just dictated by likely to score a touchdown. So I like the fact that that one's popping up. I'm happy to just use that with the Dalton Kincaid bet, and that's going to be my bet of the day there, guys. A simple, easy one on PrizePicks. Brian Thomas Jr. for under 4.5 receptions, Dalton Kincaid for over his fantasy score. Let's go ahead now and jump on into the Underdog bets. Okay, so for 2 out of the last 3 weeks now, I've been doing this all 3 weeks, but 2 out of the last 3 weeks, I bet on the top 8 bets, and they've hit 7 for 8. So kind of tilting there that haven't had that massive slip. Nick Chubb scoring a touchdown 3 weeks ago when the Browns made a point of emphasis. Again, a touchdown cost me around $2K, so a little bit tilting there. Last week it was J.K. Dobbins, but J.K. Dobbins scored a bunch of touchdowns, so it really wasn't even close to hitting, not tilting at all. But that's kind of the name of the game here, guys. I am running out all these, basically all these that have a 54% likelihood to hit, I already have exposure to. Okay, and so that's kind of just the bet of the day, is just running out these top ones here, and it's as simple as that. But also I'm going to be running out these 2 assist props that we have as well for the defenders, because again, these are these pure EV bets, and so I'm kind of happy to run those out as well. So we got Darnell Savage for under 1.5 assists, and then we also have Jack Campbell for under 2.5 assists. Those both have a 54% or greater likelihood to hit. And so that's also going to be my Underdog by the day. So kind of 3 slips already given out to you guys. I want to go ahead and get into just my favorite bets now for this week, mostly for Sunday as well. These are not going to be typical like Underdog or PrizePicks bets. These are generally just my favorite bets. Now I'm going to show you guys at the end of this with an Underdog bet slip what I'm referring to there, but I want to talk about my favorite bets. So one of my favorite bets for this week is actually going to be looking at Puka Nacua to get over 5.5 receptions in this game. And really it's just going to be a bet on his snaps and really just a bet on him not getting injured or throwing a punch. But the nice thing about him throwing a punch and getting thrown out last week is the fact that we didn't have to worry about him re-aggravating his injury. So you see the 57 snaps that he had 2 weeks ago. I expect that number to go up a little bit more. Now, it's not going to be a good match for him. That's the biggest concern. But we see the game log, even in that last game where he only played 35% of snaps, still had 4 targets in that game. And I kind of think this game might have the potential to be a shootout, and he'd be part of the reason as to why that is. And so I'm happy to bet on Puka Nacua there. Now, another one that I like is actually going to be looking at Jake Ferguson to get over 5.5 receptions. You're not going to get that many great odds across the board here. It's only minus 130, so not the best there. But I still think that this is going to be a good one. I just think that with Cooper Rush there, he's going to refer to the tight end a little bit more. And if you look at it, Jake Ferguson has, 1, been playing a lot, but 2, been gaining a lot of targets just across the board on average, averaging about 5 receptions per game. He's going against a defense that gives up an average of 5 receptions per game. And so just across the board, I kind of like this one in general. And so another bet I like a decent amount, and this is a good example of why I don't necessarily love this for like PrizePicks or Underdog, is going to be Aaron Rodgers, because the under is going to be what is favored here to hit. Now it's basically a 50-50 split, but obviously not the best odds for us to use a bet, whereas those other ones, if you guys have those available on PrizePicks or Underdog, and it's not a bet on Underdog where it's getting discounted to like 0.8x or something stupid like that, or a goblin on PrizePicks, by all means use those. This one I would say more for the traditional sportsbook crowd, or maybe Fliff or Sleeper. Sleeper does run their Sunday specials. Maybe you could do that, where the payout's going to be a little bit better for you. So looking at it, guys, right now on ESPNBET, we can get Aaron Rodgers over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Now, you look at the matchup there with Arizona, that's typically been a good matchup thus far this season. If you look at it, he is projected to get right on par with 1.5 passing touchdowns there. But for me, guys, this is more about the chemistry that he's been displaying lately with Davante Adams, with Garrett Wilson. That's just growing. Obviously, Garrett Wilson, that's been developing throughout the full season, but he's been given that chemistry back with Davante Adams. I really felt prior to that Houston game that would kind of be the breakout game for the offense, and that's exactly what happened. We can see it's been consistently been able to get this over throughout the whole season. So I'm a little bit surprised just kind of looking at those trend lines that this is the line that we are getting against probably one of his easier matchups thus far throughout this whole season. Honestly, maybe Houston was, but then Arizona's right there as well. Like the matchups only get better for him. And so that's a bet that I like there as well. And so another bet that I do like a little bit as well is going to be Josh Allen to get his over passing touchdowns as well. If you can get about minus 114, minus 115 on average. Look at the projection date. He is projected at 1.58. So I like that there. But he is someone as well, if you look at the stats, has been consistently getting this over as well. Like it's a pretty good matchup going against the Colts. The one concern would just be that they're without Keon Coleman, who I do think has been kind of a good kind of little red zone threat for them. And then you also have Amari Cooper, who is a little bit banged up. If he were to sit, that would make me a little bit concerned, because then you're looking at Mac Hollins. You're maybe hoping that James Cook gets a touchdown, maybe Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid, but it would definitely decrease the likelihood of that bet hitting. But to me, that is still a decent bet that we have on the board. And so from there, another bet that I decently like is going to be DeAndre Hopkins to get over 4.5 receptions. Now, he is going to get a difficult matchup going against the Denver Broncos, and he only ended up playing 60% of the snaps last week, where that's like third highest this year for him. But I guess that's my concern, is that how banged up is he? We're really just betting on the snaps being there. But obviously last week, even with only getting 60% of the snaps, that role that we want, those easy receptions role in that Kansas City offense, the role that we saw Rice have for a decent amount, Juju for one game, and now DeAndre Hopkins, that obviously went to him. And so that is something that I do want to chase, especially when he obviously was a focal point in that game, in the last game, and the talent is clearly there as well. Now, the biggest concern is the matchup, okay? That's the annoying part. I think this line would still be the same regardless of the matchup, because of maybe the likelihood of him getting injured. But I do like the fact that we can get this bet at like plus 105 on ESPNBET, plus 100 on Hard Rock Bet. To me, that's a decent edge that we were getting there as well. And then one last receptions prop that I like was looking at DeAndre Swift to get his over receptions as well. So Swift has been kind of an interesting player this season, where he's getting a lot of high volume. The snaps have been there for him. We look at the snap counts, did go down last week a little bit, but still over 60% of the snaps, and the workload has been a very high volume workload for him. We see the lines here about -1 or about -115 there, so not terrible. And we look at his game log, guys. He has basically been able to consistently get this over for the most part, especially lately. And the one game that he didn't was the game against Washington, where it was just an ugly game, low-scoring game, where it was kind of just a run-heavy script, and the run game was really working. That's actually my concern here going against the Patriots, where that's kind of been the Patriots' go-to is, all right, we need to win games by just running the football. Now, Drake May has looked a little bit better, but that's my concern, is that this game just ends up being a little bit even lower scoring than Vegas sees it going. So, guys, with that, I'm going to show you guys the bets of the day just to recap them. But I do want to call it the 9to5 promo code. Use the 9to5 promo code to get 20% off your first 9to5 membership using the promo code KEEP cashing. And so again, in simple, this is what I'm looking at for the PrizePicks bet of the day. The Dalton Kincaid over fantasy score I like, just simply mostly because they're not really accounting for a touchdown there for him as well. You could do Jake Ferguson over his fantasy score if you guys wanted to as well. It's kind of falls under the same category, but I do really like the matchup for Dalton Kincaid. And then this was the best like pure EV bet that we currently have, was Brian Thomas Jr. for under 4.5 receptions. And then to recap kind of my favorite traditional sportsbook bets, I'm showing you guys these on Underdog. I wouldn't necessarily suggest doing this on Underdog, but those are my favorite bets for week 10 just in general, without factoring in EV bets and whatnot. And then this is just a screenshot of the top 8 prop bets on the Underdog cheat sheet. Again, I kind of mentioned during this video that over the last 3 weeks, if you had just bet on the top 8 prop bets, 2 times you would have hit 7 for 8. Now that's not sustainable. I don't want to make it sound like I'm overextending confidence in that, but it has been fruitful there. Obviously, I'm not just running out that slip. I'm mixing and matching that in there. That's just for example purposes to say, all right, the top 8 bets did this. The max slip that you could do did this. And so it has. So I'm going to be running that again. But again, guys, I'm not just running out just this slip. We're mixing and matching, maybe doing a little bit of correlated bet slips here and there as well. So that's going to be all, guys. Make sure to give a like and subscribe to the video. Comment your guys' favorite prop bet as well. Do appreciate that. Again, if you guys want access to any of the tools that you saw in this video, head on over to 9to5sports.com. Get access to those for just $10 a month. Thanks for watching, guys. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.